welcome to our Fireside Chat. I am Nadine, your host for today. Thank you so much for joining us. Our topic is something we've all probably seen online, the way psychological terms get used, misused, and sometimes completely distorted on social media. Words like gaslighting, toxic, narcissist, or OCD get thrown around so casually that their real meanings often get lost. Today, we're here to clear some of that up. I'm joined by our moderator, Silva, who will be guiding our discussion and keeping things flowing. And of course, our amazing experts who will help break down these concepts for us: John Castin, Jerwin Giagonia, Alexia Sheridan, and Risha Kasalme. Since we have a lot to talk about, and to get things started, I'll turn it over to our moderator.
Thank you, Nandine. Hi, everyone. I'm Milvarda Silva, your moderator for today's Fireside Chat. Our goal is to break down psychological terms that are often misused on social media and explaining what they are actually mean based on psychology, not trends. Let's start with some of the most common terms we see online. All right, so let's dive right into it. We have all seen these terms floating around in our feeds: gaslighting, narcissistic, trauma, OCD, and toxic. They are everywhere. But here's the thing. Are they are are we actually using them correctly? John, let's start with you. What's going on with this term online?
Hmm. Yeah. So thanks, Silva. Take gaslighting, for example. It becomes this catch all phrase where anytime someone disagrees with you or misremembers something. But clinically, gaslighting is a deliberate, repeated pattern of manipulation where someone makes you question your own reality. Like your friend forgetting they meet you at 7 instead of 8. That's not gaslighting. That's just them being
Definitely.
forgetful. Or
Yeah.
honestly, maybe not listening at all.
Exactly. And it's the same with narcissists. I see this one all the time.
Mhm.
Someone posts a selfie, and the comments are like, oh, so narcissistic. But narcissistic personality disorder is a serious mental health condition with specific diagnostic criteria. It's not just someone who likes taking photos of themselves or has a high self esteem. There's a huge difference between confidence and personality disorder.
Yeah, right. So we are basically throwing around clinical diagnosis like they are just personality queers. Alexia, what about you? Trauma. That one seems to get misused a lot too. Why do you think people are so quick to label others with this term?
Yeah, like trauma has become so watered down online, and people are so quick to label others with that type of terms. People say things like, I'm traumatized by that TikTok, or this homework is giving me trauma. But we need to remember that actual psychological trauma refers to deeply distressing or disturbing experiences that overwhelm someone's ability to cope. Basically, things like abuse, violence, or life threatening situations. Another thing to remember is that when we use it casually for minor inconveniences, we're really minimizing the experiences of people who've been through genuinely traumatic events.
Exactly. And let's not forget OCD. This one really bothers me because I see people saying, like, I'm so OCD about my desk being clean or my OCD is kicking in, when they just mean that they like things being organized.
Mm, yeah.
But obsessive compulsive disorder, it actually involves intrusive and unwanted thoughts as well as compulsive behaviors. And it causes real distress and interferes with the individual's daily life. So it's not just liking things neat, it's actually a debilitating condition for many people.
Alright, now that we have talked about how these terms get misused, let's take a closer look to how relationship psychology get distorted online.
Yeah, so here's the thing. On platforms like TikTok or Instagram, you'll frequently see a lot of terms like avoidant attachment, toxic relationship get thrown around constantly. And it's kind of frustrating how they're being used way too casually, like these days,
Oh
right?
Yes.
yeah, it's definitely frustrating, right? So especially when people call slow replies as a sign of avoidant behavior. But these attachment patterns have a lot of factors to consider and are inherently long term. It shouldn't be based on just few instances or one behavior.
Yeah, because at the end of the day, these are legitimate psychological concepts that have been developed through decades of research. And it's kind of sad seeing how social media has flattened them into buzzwords.
Yeah, and the worst part is that people start weaponizing these terms. Like,
Yeah.
instead of having an actual conversation about what's bothering them in a relationship,
Actually.
Actually.
they'll just label their partner as narcissistic
Mm,
or avoidant and use that as a justification to end things or even avoid working through issues. It turns psychology into ammunition rather than understanding.
exactly. And you know what's funny? What was once a nuanced framework for understanding relationship patterns has become so applied reductively, so much so that people immediately diagnose their partners after watching a 60-second video.
Yeah, that's true.
Ah, mhm.
And it just goes to show that the real issue is oversimplification. Viewing people in rigid boxes to predict relationship direction is profoundly distorted, and it completely ignores the fact that attachment behaviors can shift depending on the situation.
Right? And these quick judgments online can actually create self fulfilling prophecies. So, if you label someone as avoidant and start treating them like they're going to abandon you, your
Mm-mm.
behavior might actually push them away.
Mm.
Then you're
Oh.
gonna be like, see, I knew you were avoidant. But really, you helped create that outcome.
Mhm.
Hmm.
Yeah, exactly. And that's actually bring us to one of the most misunderstood topic online, attachment style. And with that, let's hear from our expert, Jerwin.
Okay, thank you for that. So when we talk about attachment styles, we're really just talking about your default way of connecting with people you're close to. That pattern starts early with how caregivers responded to you and often shows up later in dating, friendships, and how you handle conflict. From that classic work, we now talk about our four main styles: secure, anxious, avoidant, and disorganized. Super quick definitions. Secure means you're mostly okay with closeness and depending on others. Anxious more, do you still like me? Lots of worry about being rejected, right? Avoidant is like the most common term, which is like, I'm fine on my own, keeping these feelings to yourself and backing off when things get intense. And this organizes that confusing mix of really wanting to get that closeness, but also the feeling scared or overwhelmed by it.
Right. And it's so important to say that none of this is about one bad text or one bad argument. What really matters here is the pattern over time. How you usually react when you feel ignored, stressed, or super close to someone. That's what the therapist would say and would pay attention to, not just a single screenshot or a quiz
Yeah,
result.
definitely. I do agree.
And like you're pointing out, Durin, that's actually empowering. If you notice you lean anxious, you can work on calming your thoughts and asking for reassurance more directly. If you lean avoidant, you can practice staying in tough conversations a bit longer and sharing a little more of what you actually feel.
See, the issue is that online, these labels can get thrown around like insults.
Mm.
People might call normal stress as toxic or avoidant
Mm,
and stop being curious about what's really going on or what those terms really mean. So, seeing attachment as a learned pattern instead of a fixed personality
mm,
makes it easier to show empathy to yourself and to others as well.
I really like
I
that insight, Risha. And when we use these terms well, they give us language for what we feel instead of just blaming each other. So rather than you're the problem, it becomes this is the pattern we fall into. And how do we shift this?
Yeah, true. With that in place, let's move into what happened when these labels are misunderstood or misused. How that can affect self-esteem, partner choice, or even how people behave on social media. All right, listeners, we have talked about how psychological buzzword blow up online. Now let's look at the real life damage they cause in everyday life. Let's start with relationship. What happens when terms like gaslighting get used too loosely?
Well, as we talked about earlier, it's really dangerous to use labels too loosely. Small disagreements can turn toxic very quickly, and normal quirks or misunderstandings get labeled as disorders, which creates confusion, weakens trust, and eventually breaks relationships apart.
True, and these often connect to self-diagnosis. Now that we are on this topic, John, how do you
Um,
think this start to affect
mm.
people?
Well, so you see, Silva, when people begin matching everyday stress to TikTok symptom lists, calling it OCD or something worse, this actually delays seeking professional help, increases anxiety through confirmation bias, and can even lead to self fulfilling harm.
I see. I agree with John in this. Jerwin, do you think this kind of self-labeling may create wider social problems like stigma?
Oh, definitely. When disorders are treated as trendy, real experiences get invalidated. It minimizes genuine suffering and pushes people further away from understanding and empathy.
Yeah, true. How about you, Roesha? Before we end, does you think this online misinformation affect real life conversation about mental health?
Well, for me, Silva, when people stay in online bubbles, they start trusting bad advice. So, this is very dangerous as over time, it makes them doubt therapy and changes how they talk about mental health in real life.
All right, thank you for those insights. So, before we wrap up, we want to leave everyone with a few simple reminders. There's so much information online, so it really helps to stay aware and think things through. Here are a few things to keep in mind. Attachment styles are guides, not labels. Try to understand what's behind the behavior before judging it. And most importantly, be careful with content that encourages self diagnosis or quick labels. I'll hand it over to our experts if they want to add anything.
Thank you so much for that. Now, I'd like to add one thing. So, one big thing is to slow down before believing or sharing mental health content, checking who is posting, what their background is, and whether what they say matches one more than one credible source, not just a viral trend.
Oh, yeah, I agree with you, Jerwin. And I also encourage everyone to talk about mental health in a way that is respectful and educational, not shaming. Using clear, non stigmatizing language helps people feel safer asking questions and seeking support when they need it.
Right. And it's so helpful to focus on your own patterns instead of throwing labels at other people, saying, this is what I notice about myself. Opens the door to understanding and growth much more than saying, you are the problem.
Exactly. And take a little time to understand terms like attachment styles or trauma before using them casually online. Using these words carefully keeps them meaningful and shows respect for people who are really living with those experiences.
And that brings us to the end of today's Fireside Chat. We hope this helped clear up some of the confusion around psychological terms online. Thank you to our moderator and experts for sharing their insights. And thank you to everyone listening. Again, I'm Nadine, and we appreciate you spending your time with us. Until next time, and take care.